Hello, everybody. I hope everybody's doing very well. Today I'm going to present you the historical movement of early childhood education from the early philosophers' perspectives to the current philosophers, briefly. So, when did early childhood education, care, and development concern begin? Early childhood education, care, development has began long before the birth of Christ, as far as 350, during the era of Plato and Aristotle. So this time long ago, the concern was there. The concern had been there. However, till today, still improving, evolving. So, as far as 350 BC, during Plato and Aristotle, they believed that character formation is made in the early years. This is the most important point that everybody should understand and take into consideration. So, the tree that bends at early time will go to the end as it is bent. So, Aristotle and Plato believe that the character formation begins during early childhood. Early childhood education, care and development matters. This idea had been there just before this long period of time, like 350 BC. Plato specifically commented that it is important to swaddle a child, it's important to rock child, to coo child, infants, and claimed that they need to be protected from pain, grief, and corruption. Children need protection. Children need love. Children need cooing, swaddling, affection. So this idea had been there with Plato. Specifically, Aristotle also advised or suggested that the free use of children's limbs is very much important to adapt to the the cultural performance during the period, and that he emphasized that babies need more milk. During the time, the wine had been used a lot, so wine is not good for babies. Rather, milk is good for babies. So this was really one of the witness that the concern, the idea, and the suggestions to care for children at early time began long before the birth of Christ, 350. And when we come to the second phase, it's in 15th century. We cannot find much literature between the birth of Christ, before birth of Christ, and between 15th century. However, when we come to 15th century, during Martin Luther and Erasmus, we can find some literature that claim Martin Luther and Erasmus were the first religious leaders who attempted to promote early childhood education in 15th century. So Martin Luther was the first theologian to suggest that everyone should be able to read God's word. Only priests and wealthy people used to read it. By the way, this time, some religious institutions also claim that only the leaders, only the priests are entitled to read the Bible. However, this idea had begun with the first theologian to claim about the importance of reading for children. So, he says that it's very easy to teach a child of about age 7 rather than the older children. Erasmus also held the view that children are born very good and should be valued for their future development. The concept of children being innocent had begun in 15th century by these prominent guys like Erasmus. So this was a novel idea that at that time, as children had to care for themselves. It was a novel idea. It was a new idea at that time, because at that time children had to care for themselves, children had to work in factories, children had to participate in adult activities. So this is one very important contribution of early philosophers. From 14th to 17th century, we can find a prominent man known as John Comenius. It was a time of major political, economic, and religious transition in Europe and in America, 14th to 17th century. And then John Comenius and Gutenberg kept the concept of early childhood education alive. So he said that Martin Luther idea should be, taken into consideration. So Martin Luther ideal alive. John Comenius kept Luther idea alive, believing that child's mind is moldable. He repeatedly, like Martin Luther, says that if we educate children at young age, our future will be better. Imagine in 14th century, 15th, 17th, 16th century, when we had people who say that we have to focus on children, we have to care for them, we have to educate them, we have to train them. Those people had to teach the people at that time. However, we cannot find till today that in the whole world, children are being properly educated. I'm amazed the amount of time that passed from this moment of time that children had to be cared for at early age rather than at old age. So John Comenius is a prominent philosopher who also claimed the idea of Martin Luther that children should be educated, cared, and molded, shaped at early age. So John Gutenberg designed and built the first known mechanized printing press in Europe. He printed the first Bible in 1455, which changed the whole world, affected the world. So Comenius believes that they were born with a natural craving for knowledge and goodness, and that schools beat it out of them. He was considered the right reverend. Who? John Comenius. And the Gutenberg Bible 1455 was the prominent contribution and improvement and evolution in early childhood education. From 17th to 18th century was another well-known philosopher, John Locke, from 1632 to 1744. He published an article entitled Some Thoughts on Concerning Education, which is filled with the idea of the need of physical, psychological training for a child. So, John Locke had published an article which suggests that children should be psychologically, physically trained. He developed a theory known as tabular rasa or blank slate, which claimed that children come to this world with empty mind or black slate, after which everything should be written on it. So, which means we need to take care of what to be written. How did he know more about the children? This guy had appointed himself a guardian of all his friends' children and became tutor to more closely work and observe the little creatures. John Locke is an English philosopher who lived from 1632 to 1714. So this guy is a well-known person who had philosophized on the mind of children, that the children are born good, are born like free slate, like a white paper, that everything should be written on their mind after the bed. And then in 18th century comes the French political philosopher Jean-Jacques Rousseau, who lived from 1712 to 1788. He was more controversial than Locke. He opposed religious thoughts that children are born sinful and need to be delivered. Jean-Jacques Rousseau was a well-known French philosopher who worked in politics, who philosophized in politics, and also in child education, and so on, and even in religion. He believes that all religions are false. They are used to, he believes that religions are used to enslave people to its own system. So he believes that children should be free. They are not sinful. They are not, wicked to be delivered, he claimed. However, during that time, the idea of the previous or the early philosophers is that children should be taught the word of God. Children had to be taught the ethics, the morals of the church and the religion. However, John Locke came to, oppose that and revolutionize the free movement, the free development of children during that time, which that they should be freed from the yoke of religion. He believed that because religion is just like a yoke, he said. Children are the interactive products of their very own impulse and environment demands. He also believes that children start hypothetical reasoning at age of 12. So this man said that children shouldn't enter to school before age 10 or 12 because logical thinking or abstract thinking begins at age 12. We don't have to, put any burden on children before that, whether it is education or religion. He said, man's education begins at birth. Before he can speak or understand, he is learning. Experience precedes instruction. When he recognizes his caregiver, he has learned much. Rousseau's theory of education emphasized the importance of expression to produce a well-balanced, free-thinking child. He believes that if children are allowed to develop naturally without constraints imposed on them by society, they will develop towards their fullest potential, both educationally and morally. This is what he claimed. It was called controversial. He opposed the then existing widely accepted view of the impact of religion to change the mind of the children to be good citizens. Then comes now 19th century. In 19th century, we now come to find the prominent, well-known, influential philosophers in early child education like Pestalozzi and Froebel. They were very much influenced by Jean-Jacques Rousseau. Pestalozzi and Froebel were the students of or the followers of Jean-Jacques Rousseau. So John Henrik Pestalozzi, he was a Swiss educator. He translated Rousseau's theories into educational practice. Pestalozzi advocated his idea of children not starting any formal education until the age of 12. Pestalozzi, a Swiss educator, was trying to apply or put into practice the idea that Rousseau had been promoting. One of the idea is that children should not get into school before age of 12. And Pestalozzi had a new approach which was known as Anshuang principle, which says that children should not be taught of anything before they practically and physically experience it. This is Pestalozzi's principle and contribution. Children should not be taught about flower before they actually and physically go to the field, touch the flower, cut it, smell it, manipulate it, and so on. He promoted, and then comes Frederick Froebel, 1782 to 1852, follow Rousseau's and Pestalozzi way, and he was a teacher. He was a teacher, very practical and very much concerned about wife and children. The relationship, Froebel promoted the importance of the relationship between wife and children, mother and children. The mothers, the affection, the interaction, the communication between the mother and the children at home will ensure the emotional security at school. This was also the idea of Pestalozzi. And again, Froebel accepted it and promoted it. Frederick Froebel. He promoted play as a very essence of early childhood education and believed children should play in school. The role of play had to come to attention after Frederick Froebel's paramount contribution of the idea of the importance of play in the early child education. He believed that children will learn a lot if they are educated alongside with play. And he had also what we call Froebel's gifts for children in his first kindergarten, in which he had to give different gifts, different materials, different play materials, which can help children to understand the dimensions of the world, objects, and to increase their knowledge, to expand their perspectives of learning and experience. So Froebel is well known of his first kindergarten, in which he used his gifts. There are 10 gifts that are still existing till today. Froebel gifts. These gifts have expanded now in today's modern school to the different materials which can be used or manipulated by children to understand the world. And 19th to 20th century, Darwin, Stanley Hall, and Sigmund Freud are those of the majors among the major of the century. And Charles Darwin noted that for his publication of Origin of Species and Darwin Theory, he followed and recorded his own sense development. He made known infant reflexes. His publication 1877 revealed all about children development. Charles Darwin is known for his evolutionary theory of natural selection, that every living being had to struggle, fight, and win the life of this world, and the fittest of survival. So to survive, and a living organism should be able to fit to the demand of the world and the environment. And Stanley Hall returned from his graduate study in Europe and opened a field of early childhood education research in America, and he discovered a lot of documents. He developed a new questionnaire method to investigate the content of children's mind, which became a basis of aptitude tests to date. Stanley Hall had been educated in Europe. When he came back to America, he focused on investigating what is going on in the mind of the children. So he prepared a questionnaire to investigate those things, and that have been evolved, developed, improved, and today we use it and call it aptitude test. So Stanley introduced Freud to America, Sigmund Freud, a well-known psychologist with a theory of psychosexual development, psychodynamic or psychoanalysis theory of psychology of human development, in which instincts to seek pleasure from infancy to later age can affect human behavior. The conflict between our natural or our biological, anatomical need and environmental demand could affect our development, which especially get its foundation during early childhood before age 5. So this idea had really immensely influenced the world of psychology today. Children should not be left crying to sleep themselves. We need to give them unconditional life. So as children at that time were working in factories from age 7 or 5, even 6, this was really another novel idea. So Charles Darwin, Stanley Hall, Sigmund Freud were really remembered among those prominent philosophers from 1st century before Christ to 20th century. Thank you very much. We will continue with others later time. Thank you so much. Have a good time. Please subscribe, share and comment. Give your constructive ideas. This is Assistant Professor Abaya Dagafa, a PhD candidate at Addis Ababa University. Have a good time. See you again on Bonanza Wisdom Channel.